abilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So this hangout is going to be a free-flowing discussion. It's going to be an open mic. So anything that you all want to talk about, we can talk about. You can provide your comments in the live chat, and I'll respond to you. And if I have some people who are interested in actually hopping on this hangout and participating, I will share the link in the description box for those of you who are interested. I'm going to give you all a few minutes, to come in and join this discussion before I get started. Things that I have on my mind that I feel like talking about, but I also want to hear from you. Shout out to Naturally, good evening to you. Thanks for tuning in. People who are just joining, what I want to do is have an open discussion tonight. Whatever you want to talk about, we can talk about. You can let me know what you want to talk about in the live chat. And depending on the crowd, I may link so people can just hop on to the Google Hangout and join the discussion. So we can have a free-flowing discussion where it's not just me talking and everything, so that other people can actually get on here and share their views. So if you all can let me know if you're interested in joining, I can either send you the link, just post it in the chat room. It depends on like the crowd that I get, a couple of people. But there are a couple of things that I want to talk about. And I might as well just jump into it, and then later on I'll see if there are people that want to join the discussion and start talking about other additional issues as well. This is going to be a free-flowing discussion. Anything is up for discussion or debate. So I want to share my screen. First, let me for a second. Then I'm going to share my screen so that you all can see the articles that I'm going to reference. Just bear with me a second. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is the situation involving Baltimore public schools. As many people know, I live in Baltimore City. Something that's very important to me. For the past couple of days, Baltimore schools have been closed due to the inclement weather. Also because there are some schools with the heating in those schools. As we know, for the past couple of weeks here in the Baltimore area and just on the East Coast, it has been very cold. It's been below freezing. The temperatures have been in the teens here in the Baltimore area. Very cold. It's been like extremely cold. And unfortunately, many schools in Baltimore City do not have adequate heat. So children were forced to wear their coats in class and all that kind of stuff. Cold in many of these classrooms. And it's just outrageous that this would happen. It's absolutely outrageous. And this article points out how there's an NFL football player is a Baltimore City school teacher. His thermostat said that it was 40 degrees in his classroom, and he posted pictures of his students wearing coats in class and all that kind of stuff. And his students are freezing. And this article pointed out how situation involving just a few schools in the Baltimore City area, it's about 60 schools that have heating problems in the Baltimore City school system. And that's about a school system where you don't have adequate heating in this cold winter time period. And it is impossible for a kid to actually learn in such an environment where they are cold and, the schools have been shut down. Now, I read an article where they were saying that this problem will be corrected by Monday. That's what they claim. But it's just outrageous that you would have this situation. Across another article issue, and before I go to that, I'll just say this. I know that I came across some reports about this teacher, Aaron Mabin, um, in Baltimore City, who's I think he's the one that started a fundraiser, raised funds to provide heating and all that kind of stuff, and he met his goal, and he was able to raise the funds to repair the system at that particular school, and that's a great thing. But it's a shame that you have this problem. It's a shame that you have students that don't have adequate heating in their school buildings. And I think that this is just a small tip of the iceberg in terms of the massive disparities between the kids that go to Baltimore City public schools and the kids that go to more affluent suburban schools. And that's what's pointed out in this other CNN article. You have this white teacher who, former teacher who taught in the Baltimore City school system, and she talked about how the situation is unfair. The students in these classrooms are or other minorities forced to go to school under these conditions, under these unfair conditions. And this is something that the teachers union has condemned, according to this article. It's something that people have spoken out against. And this teacher points out how it's not the first time that this problem has come up. She's talked about her kids having to deal with this problem years ago. And it's a shame that people are still dealing with this problem where there's inadequate heating. And section where she talks about like the racial dimension to this whole issue. Just bear with me a second. She points out how this is what the article says, with a closer look at the images, it's hard to miss the color of the children. Every single one, black or brown. Classrooms of freezing children of color is the epitome of systemic racism laid bare. That's what she points out in this article. She also points out how it's not just a problem in the winter. This is just one example of the situation. To that section, if you can bear with me a second. She goes on to talk about how there are structural layers shaping unequal educational opportunity in this country, disparate technology, high quality curriculum and teachers, small class sizes, advanced coursework, summer enrichment opportunities, and more. And it goes on to talk about how Baltimore students are being deprived. And then it goes on to say that this isn't just a problem unique to the wintertime. She points out how in the summer you have classrooms that are scorching. It's very hot in a lot of the schools because of the inadequate air conditioning provided, and students go without drinking water because there are problems with the lead poisoning. Also, you have roaches and rodents in a lot of these classrooms. A horrible situation, unfortunately, in many Baltimore City schools. Pile those, when you add that to the problems of poverty in many Baltimore City communities, that just creates a recipe for disaster, a recipe that makes it hard for students to actually learn. And as I was reflecting on this, this whole thing about disparities in terms of racism and all that kind of stuff, it made me think about several things. This article points out how officials claim that they gave the city a lot of money, but, there's been mismanagement. Leaders say that, this have been underfunded for decades and all that kind of stuff. And that's the reason why you have these problems. But it's like when you think about like it as a race issue, it becomes more complicated because you have an African American mayor, you have a predominantly black city council, and you have or the website to the school board. It shows the members of the school board. And if you go to the site, you'll see that there are four African American members of the school board. And I think that there are 9, or if I'm not mistaken. So that's close to a majority of the board members being black. That's a large percentage of African Americans on that school board. So the fact that you have a black city council, you have a large percentage of black people on the school board, still not able to address these problems. They're still not able to correct these problems, and it makes it more difficult to argue that this is a race issue when you have black people in positions of power like this, in a position to ensure that students get a better education. But then when you look at it from a larger perspective in terms of the state providing funding, that makes it is still room for discrimination. When you look at the schools being funded in terms of taxes, tax revenue, in terms of property values, like that a lot of school systems are funded based on property values in those communities. And we know that in communities like Baltimore, communities that are plagued with dilapidated and vacant homes and stuff like that, there's less tax revenue being generated to go into the school system compared to more affluent neighborhoods where you have and higher property values and things like that. So you have a situation where more money goes into those suburban schools compared to Baltimore City schools. You don't have these same problems, the county schools, in the Baltimore County schools, or in the Howard County schools, or in the Anne Arundel County schools, or the surrounding counties like Harford County. They don't have these same kind of problems these schools are plagued with. And I just think that it is a combination of things. It's a combination of mismanagement on the local level, plus a failure to adequately fund Baltimore schools on the state level. It's just a disgrace, man. This should be a national embarrassment that we're still talking about, segregated schools. We're still talking about and unequal education in this society. It's an outrage. This is something that I had to discuss. One of the topics that I wanted to make sure that we talked about. And I'm going to go to the chat room to see what people are saying, if people are saying anything. I know it's kind of late. And there are a couple of other things that I want to touch on if we don't have, if we're not able to discussion. So let's see. Been on that long, Elaine. I just started. I was talking about the Baltimore City school systems. If you didn't hear, so I haven't really spent that much. I don't think I've been on here that long. There are 2 other topics that I may touch on. And I'm trying to see if you all have suggestions for things that you want me to talk about as well, or if you want to join, just let me know in the chat room if you want to hop on and actually join the hangout. And Elaine said that she bets that the majority white schools got heat. Yeah, they don't have a problem with the heating system in those schools. Like even after the streets were cleared of snow and stuff like that, because we had a snowstorm here. It wasn't even that bad, but the Baltimore City schools were still closed because of these heating issues. these buildings are older. You know, a lot of them are not well maintained. And that's a disgrace that you would have that. I mean, Baltimore is one of the wealthiest states in this country, but yet the schools in Baltimore City are allowed to deteriorate to such a degree where you have Black people in a second tier level of education, substandard conditions and stuff like that. It's really outrageous that this continues to happen. I said tokenism doesn't mean they're not racist. Systemic racism. Yeah, that's true. Like even though you have Black people in high places, you still have an institution that is discriminatory. So that's definitely a valid point. So let me scroll through some more of your comments. So Elaine Lloyd wanted to know if I was going to talk about that book by Michael Wolff. And that book is something else. I haven't read it yet. I plan to read it. I watched an interview that Michael Wolff did on the Today Show. He was talking about like all these conversations that he had with people that work closely with Trump, posing just how these people actually think about Donald Trump. He said that most of the people said that Donald Trump was like a child, somebody that needed gratification. Somebody who doesn't read, he doesn't like to read articles or books or reports or anything like that. Also pointed out how this man was considered to be a moron by a lot of the people he's surrounded by. These people consider him to be an idiot, basically. And, they don't have much confidence in him. He's unfit to serve. And also in the interview was talking about how this man constantly repeats himself. Like he will constantly retell the same stories. And he pointed out how like he's been doing this for quite some time, where he'll repeat a story, like when people have bad memory and they don't realize that they've told you something before and they just keep repeating themselves. Trump is accused of doing, worse and worse. Like before, it would take him longer to eventually repeat the story, but now he's repeating stories back to back. So now people are questioning his mental capacity. They're whether he is capable of holding this position, like whether or not he has some kind of brain issues or some Alzheimer's and all that kind of stuff, man. This is frightening that you have somebody in a position like this. And I was reading this article, and I might as well pull it up. I touched on this before in one of my Google Hangouts, but I'm going to pull it up again. Let me go to my Facebook page. But yeah, it's an article that just talks about like how, the conflicts between him and Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon pointed out how, let me share my screen. Hold on one second. And had all these insulting things to say about Donald Trump and his wife. He said his wife was as dumb as a box of, as a rock or something or a brick. Yeah, it was a brick. Dumb as a brick. Let me pull it up. And this guy is paranoid. Like according to some reports, he doesn't like to eat food that by other people. So he eat McDonald's a lot, which is crazy. Yeah, let me pull up this article. See it. But I have, this is the article right here. It's in the New Yorker magazine. And I would play the video of Michael Wolff on the Today Show, but I don't want to have to deal with those copyright issues, so I won't be able to do that. I'll just leave it in the description box so that you could watch it for yourself. It's about like how crazy this guy Donald Trump is, how unfit he is. This article's, was primarily focused on how like nobody really believed that this guy will win. He would be president. Even Donald Trump didn't believe he would be president. And it goes on and on. But I encourage y'all to look. I'm going to buy it myself, as soon as I get a chance and read it, because the little bit that's been leaked about it is just frightening. It's frightening that somebody like this of the United States. It is crazy that we have somebody like that in the White House. A buffoon, somebody that's not morally fit or mentally fit to be president of the United States. Man. Oh, I see why not now said that she can't get Wolf's book anywhere. And the only thing is that there are some inaccuracies in the book. Yeah, I heard about that. I did hear about that on CNN. So I need to look. I need to find out exactly what the inaccuracies are. But I did hear about that as well. And be used to basically undermine the points that are being raised in the book. Because this guy says that he's interviewed all these people that are close to Donald Trump, and none of them really have much respect for this guy, man. Despite having all this money and, being the president of the United States, closest advisors don't have any respect for him. We know that guy, Tillerson, the guy that's this Secretary of State, referred to Donald Trump as a moron. Don't have much confidence in him. And neither do, obviously I don't have any confidence in him. Stuff is being exposed, man. He doesn't get a second term in the White House, or he doesn't, have what it takes to fulfill a second term and decides to resign. I hope that happens, and I hope lose during the midterms and has, an adequate number of people in Congress. He can pass his right-wing agenda. We already see what happened with that tax plan, which is a disaster. It's just a windfall to the rich. It's crazy, and they've used that to like undermine the individual mandate under the Affordable Care Act. Stuff going on, man. Oh yeah, and that tweet. Yeah, I mean that's something that I touched on in one of my earlier hangouts about Donald Trump's tweet. That's something that Elaine Lloyd mentioned. Basically said that he has a bigger nuclear button, like a button and, more powerful nuclear weapons that actually work, basically threatening. And that is not going to help any situation. All that's going to do is exacerbate the situation. We need somebody that's level-headed, not somebody that's going to feed into the fears of a paranoid dictator over there in North Korea. It's just a shame that you had these two idiots in power. And who can tell what's going to happen next? I mean, anything is possible, man. We don't need to be involved in another military conflict. And it's just a shame that this guy, Donald Trump, is just throwing fuel on the fire instead of diplomatic and all kinds of disastrous decisions. Another disaster that he made was with respect to Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. We saw that immediately after that there was protests in the occupied territories and more conflict over there. The whole world basically stood up to Donald Trump when the UN condemned Donald Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. A lot of stuff going on. I mean, this man is proving himself unfit every day that he spends in that White House. He's constantly on Twitter like he's some high school student. And that tells you about his level and his lack of intellect. They talked about how he doesn't read much. So something simple as Twitter, where you just use a few characters, is suitable to him because he's not capable of anything more than that. And his followers are so dumbed down that they can only comprehend things in that small frame of characters. Man, it just makes me worry about the direction of this country, man. It's like that gave us some kind of sense of hope, like that America was going in a new direction towards more tolerance and, towards some kind of reconciliation. And now with the election of this Donald Trump guy, it seems like this country has taken a step backwards. But for people that know history, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised about this at all. So let me continue going through these comments. And if y'all are interested, if anybody's interested in joining the hangout and just chopping it up about different things, let me know, and I'll be glad to either send you the link in the chat room. Okay, so Angeline said, I have a question. Is unemployment low for Black people now? Yeah, I saw an article about how low Black unemployment was for Black people now. And they were asking about what was the cause of that. And actually, the article said that the rate had gone down to the levels that it was in 1972. Saw that article real quick. I'm glad you brought up that point. So let me Google that real quick and then share my screen if you can bear with me a second. Okay, yeah, it was in the Grill where I saw it. Let me pull up this article. I have too many windows open. Hopefully y'all can hear me okay. All right, let me share my screen because that's an interesting point that you raised. I'm glad that you raised that in the free-flowing discussion, so we'll talk about anything that comes up. Yeah, so here's the article. It says, in December, Black unemployment hit its lowest rate since 1972. As the Bureau of Labor Statistics began tracking the rate of Black workers over the age of 16 and 72, and since that time, the rate has never fallen below 7%. December, 6.8%. It also talks about how the rate is slowing down. And white unemployment right now in December is like, it says 3.7%. So let's see. This really doesn't go into exactly why this is the case. Who also points out how job growth is slowing down by Donald Trump's promise to create more jobs. On conflict here. So this doesn't really go into like why this is the case. We saw that unemployment began to decline. That Obama implemented during his term in the House. So, right now we don't know exactly what's driving this. My educated guess that it was policy that Obama implemented, decline, reduce the unemployment rate overall, and then also the Black unemployment rate. That's something that's significant, man. That's a great development. I'm glad that unemployment is so low in the Black community, because I know early on during that crisis, it was up to like 14% or so. This is significant, and I'm going to look out for an article with as to why this is going down. Some, and I've had a chance to read them. I'll future hangout or do a future video explaining it. So let me stop sharing my screen and see what else you all are saying in the chat room. Need to things if people don't have other topics that they want to bring up right now. Oh, I see. Why not now? Basically said they're going down with President Obama. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Hold on 1 second, y'all. I skipped over something. Okay. Oh yeah, and Elaine Lloyd, going back to this Michael Wolff book, points out how spends hours watching Fox, eating McDonald's. Yeah, that's what they talked about, like how he, because of his paranoia about people possibly drugging his food or poisoning his food, he sits in his bed eating McDonald's cheeseburgers. And actually, in that article that I showed you all, of him sitting down eating these burgers and stuff like that, man, it's just crazy. And I heard reports about him having a horrible diet, or a diet that's based on trash, fast food and all that kind of stuff, unhealthy fast food. Why not now says that's why I say the media is trash. They're making a big deal that Wolff got the Secretary of Commerce wrong. Then, they're focusing on that more so than substantive stuff. Elaine Lloyd said no one is denying the quotes in the book. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, because Steve Bannon hasn't denied any of these points in the book. Despite him trying to suck up to Trump after this stuff came out, he's not denying that he said all that stuff. He's been on radio interviews. He has not denied anything yet. And as you know, he plays an influential role in Breitbart. He hasn't put out any articles disassociating himself from those comments or anything like that, or denying that he made those statements. I haven't heard any other people denying these statements. The image that they have painted of Donald Trump is a frightening image. It's frightening to think that we have such a fool in the White House. But we see examples of that every day with his tweets, with his ridiculous statements. Not fit. And what we need is regime change right here in America, man. Forget North Korea. We need regime change right here, man. And, I hope the man gets impeached, or I hope he resigns. Definitely need to do everything in our power to make sure that he doesn't have a second term. If ever there was a time that we need to vote, that time is now. In the words of Reverend Barbara, man, it's like we can't afford to sit out any of these elections. I'm telling you that these elections don't matter. You need to look at them with skepticism, them with suspicion. So let me go through these comments some more. Why not now said that Trump will get credit for the achievements of President Obama. going to happen? They're going to say, oh, you're the one that turned around the economy. You're the one that created these job opportunities for African Americans. Exactly. Obama took, this country was in an economic recession. You know, there were lots of high unemployment. You had many people losing their homes. You had the unemployment rate down, significant improvement in the economy. But yet you have these fools constantly saying that Obama did nothing to benefit the Black community and all that kind of stuff, despite the fact that he reduced unemployment in the Black community and done a host of other things that are beneficial to the Black community. And now I said it's sad that Black people don't know that. Exactly, it's sad. Oh, and I see that it's me. Mia said that I heard that the unemployment rate is sometimes incorrect because they. Um, yeah, so someone's. Yeah, so it's me. Mia said that I heard that the unemployment rate is sometimes incorrect because they focus on the number of people receiving unemployment. People that may not be receiving unemployment, that have stopped looking for jobs. So sometimes the count is, so that's a valid point. And that's a good point as well, man. Like they are, partially employed or whatever, they'll get counted as being employed. So let me move on to the next point that I wanted to make. And y'all can let me know in the comments if you're interested in joining things that you want me to bring up while we're hanging out, because this is a open mic type of session. I'll close a couple of screens on here real quick. One thing that I wanted to talk about was the situation in Israel involving African refugees. It's crazy. I saw this article in the Griot, and I'm going to share my screen with you all so that you can see what I'm referring to. So you see this article right here. It's talking about how there are 38,000 African refugees and immigrants in Israel, and many of them are from Eritrea and the Sudan. And the government there is issuing an ultimatum, telling the people, the African immigrants, that they have to leave Israel now or go to prison. And they have until April to leave Israel or they're going to face incarceration. And one thing, and I've done videos on this before about like these racist Israelis holding these racist rallies against African immigrants. And they refer to these African immigrants as infiltrators. That's how much they despise African immigrants in Israel. The whole situation involving these African immigrants in Israel is just another reminder that Zionism is racism. Years ago, the UN issued a resolution saying that, and here we are today, example, proving that point again. One of the reasons why they want these African immigrants out of their country is because they are concerned that too many Black people will undermine the Jewish and democratic character of the state of Israel. That's what they're afraid of. Israel was created, following the war, following, the Holocaust, following the rise of Nazism in Europe and all that kind of stuff. And the Jews, they fled and they created their own nation, Israel. These are people that understand what it means to be persecuted, you would think, because they went through the Holocaust. They suffered from genocide and discrimination and all that kind of stuff. And despite having that history, knowing about what it means to be oppressed, knowing what it means to be forced to flee your homeland, these people are turning their backs on fellow human beings who are in a similar position where they are fleeing war-torn areas, where they are fleeing persecution, where they are fleeing oppression. You would think that these Israelis that have suffered that kind of history would be able to identify with those who are fleeing persecution. But instead of identifying with these people, they are rejecting these people and they are persecuting these people, persecuting our African brothers and sisters in Israel. But yet this is the state that people want to defend. This is the state that people want to protect and rally behind and all that kind of stuff. We already know what they do to the Palestinians, how they oppress the Palestinians. And this oppression of African people is just a reminder again that Zionism is racism, that the state of Israel is a racist state, an oppressive state. And it's time for us to take a stand. It's time for Black people to join the boycott against the state of Israel. The state of Israel is an apartheid state by any definition. Former President Jimmy Carter wrote a book comparing Israeli policies to apartheid. An excellent book, and I encourage people to read it. But just as we protested and had a boycott against South Africa, we need to support a boycott against the state of Israel for its persecution of Palestinian people and for its persecution of our African brothers and sisters that are trying to seek asylum there in Israel. And the reason why this is important is because the United States supports this state of Israel. They give them military weapons. They give them all kinds of financial backing. The state of Israel, a small state, when you look at the geography and you look at the map, it's relatively small. That state receives more financial aid from the United States than most of Africa does. Despite the fact that you have famine in parts of Africa and other issues, that state of Israel receives more funding from the US than most of Africa. And that's outrageous. We are funding Israeli terrorism when we give our tax dollars to that state. We are supporting terrorism when the United States gives the Israelis weapons that they use to persecute and oppress the Palestinian people. And, I just think that it's outrageous, man. And if this example of what they're doing to the Africans isn't enough to wake up our people here in America to the racist nature of Zionism, I don't know what else will. And most of these politicians, they're punkified, they're weak, they're feeble, they are dominated and controlled and bullied by the Israeli lobby, bullied by groups like AIPAC, bullied by those groups, bullied into submission because they fear that if they go against the pro-Israeli lobby, then they will lose their elections. They depend on these groups for financial backing in order to run for office. And it's a shame. It's a shame that we allow this kind of stuff to continue. You know, it's a shame that the United States supports such a state. And it's a shame that there aren't enough African American politicians speaking out boldly on this issue. You know, even some people like, and you know, a while ago I did an analysis of the debate between us and Ta-Nehisi Coates, and one of the points that Cornel West raised was that the fact that Coates wouldn't address this issue of what's happening in Palestine. And many Black activists and politicians, they won't touch that issue. They won't touch that issue because they are afraid that they will be alienated if they touch that issue. You have civil rights groups that are afraid to touch that issue because they fear losing funding from these groups. They fear being labeled as anti-Semitic when it has nothing to do with being anti-Semitic. It's about opposing oppression of fellow human beings. It's about opposing discrimination against fellow human beings. It's about opposing the occupation of land, and the depriving people of their basic human rights. That's what it's about. But people are so punkified that they don't have the heart to even speak out on this issue. Have the heart, you know, even these so-called scholars don't have the heart because they know that the minute they do, they will be alienated. They won't be celebrated the way they are right now. They won't be able to get on these television shows and share their views. They won't even be able to put out documentaries. You got people that put out documentaries about white supremacy and this and that. And I don't agree with half of it, you know, hardly anything that guy Tommy Sotomayor says. But one thing that he talked about was like the whole Hidden Color series and the failure to Jews. Like, you can talk about white supremacy in general terms, but nobody is going to confront Zionism the way it needs to be confronted because they fear these people. They fear their power. They fear their influence. But, you know, as I say on this channel, I speak truth to power without fear. Fear these people. So, yeah, this is just something that needs to be addressed, something that we need to speak out more about. And it's a shame that, you know, wherever the Black man is, the Black man and woman find themselves, whether they are in a Jewish country or a Muslim country, or a Christian country, a capitalist country, or a socialist country, we find that regardless of those circumstances or the ideology or the religion that's being professed, we find that at the end of the day, Black people are still marginalized, Black people are still oppressed in these different countries under these different ideologies. It could be a socialist country, a capitalist country, and it's just a shame, man. And, you know, this is what Pan-Africanism looks like, where we rally behind the causes of our brothers and sisters, both in Africa and throughout the diaspora. So that was one story that I had to touch on in this hangout. I'm going to check to see what people are saying. Get to a third story before I close out. Yeah, so Elaine asked if Why Not Now will join the chat. Yeah, how it worked, and Why Not Now said, well, how does it work? Well, what I can do is just post the link in the description box. Well, I'm going to post it in the chat room, and all you have to do is click on that link, and you will be able to actually appear on this hangout just like I'm appearing on here. And you have the option not to show your face. Like, there's an icon for the camera, and you can click that off if you don't want to show your face on camera and stuff. All you need is like a webcam on your computer or your phone or whatever device you have, and you should be able to join the hangout. So if you're interested, I can, I'll post it. that Wanda announces her husband is pulling her away now. Maybe next time. Yeah, I need to get you. I would love to have a hangout with Why Not Now, because she always has like some insightful comments that she leaves, um, both to the videos and in the live chat. So that would be great. Or and Elaine Lloyd, it would be great to have you on as well. So if you're interested, you can let me know. Yeah, and that's a good question about the EPA. That's one thing that people didn't realize about that tax cut that was passed. Now they can drill in Alaska and all that kind of offshore in Alaska and stuff, which is going to probably have a devastating impact on the environment. It's like these people are driven by greed, man. They don't have any kind of compassion for the environment or human life and all that kind of stuff. This Trump administration is really taking us backwards in so many ways. All right, so I'm going to touch on this one last story. And you all can let me know if there's other stories you want me to talk about, again, in the live chat. But there's one other story that I wanted to touch on, and it's an incident of police brutality. And I'm sure a lot of people have already heard about it, but I have to address it as well. Just bear with me a second. I need to Google something on this because there were some developments in this case. Just bear with me a second. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. One second. Okay, so this is a case of police brutality. The victim is Ulysses Wilkerson, and he was severely beaten by Alabama police. And this occurred last month. His face, as you can see in this picture, is just bruised and swollen, and his nose is bleeding, his mouth is bleeding, after his encounter with the police. And this picture right here, his mother posted on social media to share with the public, and it's gone viral. It's been shared more than 80,000 times. Now, the police claim that Wilkerson was walking around a building at around 11:52 p.m. in downtown Troy, Alabama. The police approached him. He ran from the police. The police caught up to him. They say that they asked him to put his hands behind his back. And the police claim that they used force when they believed that he was reaching for his waistband. Now, that's the police story. That's what they're saying. Obviously, there are questions about whether or not that's what in fact happened. And even if they said that he was reaching for something. Also, further on, they say that a gun was recovered at the scene. Let me get to that part. So they're trying to claim that he had a gun. I'm going to click to this link where they show the statement. Hopefully this will come up, yeah, where it shows the statement. And it says that he suffered trauma to his brain, swelling on the brain, a cracked eye socket in 3 different places, as a result of what the police did to him. So let me scroll down 1 second. And this is the statement that the Alabama State Bureau of Investigation issued. Yeah, so basically they talk about him being injured and transported directly to Troy Regional Medical Center. They say that he was later transported to the University of Alabama Medical Center in Birmingham and subsequently released. They talked about how the city Troy police chief requested that the Alabama State Bureau of Investigation conduct an independent investigation. And that request was approved, so they're reviewing it. And they said that no additional information was released to protect the young man. And they said that the completed investigation would be turned over to the Pike County District Attorney, Tom Anderson, for presentation to a grand jury. So that's where the case is right now. Let me go to some statements from the family. And you have family members saying that they tried to kill my son. They talk about the massive swelling. He can't get surgery until the swelling goes down. And also, like, apparently there was they had body cameras, and people are demanding to see those body cameras. And I think that that's rightfully so. I mean, that's right to see the body cameras. That's what we need, because we know that police officers often lie and they often plant evidence. We saw what happened to Walter Scott. We saw that police officer shoot that brother Walter Scott in the back multiple times, killing him, and then telling a false story to other police, making it seem as if this brother posed some kind of threat. And then the officer who killed him, the officer Michael Slager, planted evidence to make it seem like there was some kind of struggle. He staged the scene and all that kind of stuff. So you can't believe a word that these police say. If it wasn't for that camera, that the citizen used to capture video footage of the incident, then Michael Slager would be walking around free today, and the family of Walter Scott would have been denied justice. So we can't believe a word that they have to say. And I want to hear what Ulysses Wilkerson has to say, like what he has to say, his side of the story, before I believe anything that these police have to say. I want to see the footage of this incident. They claim that there were probably body cameras here, and the public has every right to demand that those cameras be provided to the public. That the video be provided to the public. And as I was saying before, the police claim that when they returned to the scene, they found a handgun on the ground. I would want to know if there's any kind of evidence of his fingerprints on the gun or his DNA on the gun. It just sounds suspicious, man. We know that police regularly plant weapons and stuff like that. So I don't trust anything that these people have to say. I think that there needs to be an independent investigation. We need to get the camera footage and all. Oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah, because this is outrageous. I mean, just the pictures alone look like an abuse of force and excessive use of force and all that kind of stuff. So let me try to Yeah, I'm going to keep that off because I don't want to deal with copyright issues. And according to this article, it says that Reverend Al Sharpton shared images of the boy's bruised and bloody face on Facebook. And leaders of his group are working with the family. Yeah, I just think that people need to stay focused on this issue. Make sure that this issue doesn't get lost in the press. And, I will continue to follow developments in this case, like find out, like once I hear about what the footage says, I'll put that out and discuss that. And also I want to hear more about this gun. And I want to find out if this brother's been interviewed and what his story is, what his explanation is, or how he would describe the chain of events. So yeah, I just wanted to share this story with you. It's a story that's important. Deserves our attention. Okay. Something's playing. Okay, so all right, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now, and I want to check out what you all have to say. And again, if people want to join, please let me know, and I'll send you a link because I want to hear what the people have to say. And Why Not Now says that that's the story that's not being told in the media. The treatment of blacks in Israel. They're also sterilizing the women, and they call them dogs. Yeah, I remember reading a story about that as well, referring to black people as dogs. And this is the state that you have some black people saying is, you have these Hebrew Israelites and all that kind of stuff saying this and that about Israel and stuff like that. But what do they have to say about what's going on? What do they have to say about the persecution of African people in Israel? That's what I want to know. And Why Not Now says, remember Donald Sterling? He said that the Israelis treat blacks like dogs. Yes, I remember that. I remember when he said that. And he was right about that. He was so right about that. But yet you have all these black politicians who bow before the state of Israel. They bow before the state of Israel. They bow before these Zionists. They bow before AIPAC and all these other pro-Israeli lobbying groups. Even some of these people that you would think speaking truth to power, these activists and stuff like that, they are afraid of these people. They are afraid of being financially cut off from these people. So afraid that they can't even speak truth on this issue. So afraid that they are silent. They can't speak a word on this because too many of them have basically sold out for money, for donations, for campaign funds. All right, so just bear with me a second. Yeah, it's just crazy, man. That they literally treat black people like dogs in Israel. And you had Donald Sterling. That's the man, if you all remember, was the one that said he didn't want black people coming to his games, even though black people are the ones on his team, the ones making him money. These people, I tell you, it's something else. So Elaine Lloyd said that she will join the hangout. So I'm going to post a link in here real quick, just in case you want to join, and you could just click the link. Hopefully we won't have any trolls join. You all could just talk about whatever y'all want to talk about. So I'll just put the link in there just in case. So Elaine Lloyd says America supports the persecution of blacks. I doubt that they will care if another country oppresses black people. Yeah, I mean, that's a valid point. But it's up to us to make them, not make them care, but pressure them to address something. You know, I couldn't care less what they think about something. What I'm concerned about is what they actually do. So if we put pressure on the government to take certain course of action with respect to Israel, it can happen just like what happened in South Africa when people organized and they put pressure on companies to boycott South Africa. The same could be done with Israel. And Elaine Lloyd says it seems like all cops have to do is plant a gun and they get carte blanche to murder black people or say he was reaching for a gun or they saw something shining. It could be a knife. Yeah, that's all they have to do is say, well, I feared for my safety. You know, I thought he was reaching for something. I thought he posed a threat to me. And all they have to do is use those magic words and they get a license to murder black people. And most of the time, they will not even be charged. And if they are charged, they end up walking. Okay, so Chris said, what's my take on Ben Shapiro? I'm not familiar with Ben Shapiro, so if you could tell me in the chat room who he is, I can respond to you there. All right, so bear with me a second. Yeah, so if you could, Chris, if you could respond and just let me know who he is or post a link or something. Tell me why that person is significant. Oh, and I see that Elaine said that her dad told her how blacks are treated in Israel. And she pointed out how he's a Hebrew Israelite. Yeah, I would be interested in hearing about that, like from the perspective of the Hebrew Israelites that go there and who have actually lived there and seen firsthand how the Israelis treat African people. I would be interested in hearing from them. I had a chance to go to Israel a couple of years ago. I had a chance, like as a part of some group, and unfortunately, I turned it down. I regret turning it down, but at the time, like there's always some conflict over there. It's not like the safest place in the world to go, especially right now. And at the time, there were reports of conflict, like Israelis getting stabbed and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, maybe that's not the best time to go there. But I do want to go to Israel one day, go to the occupied territories. I want to see the different religious sites and stuff like that. All right, so shout out to Herb Saint. Said you really like my commentary, very logical and practical, black viewpoint. You said thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate your comment. Those kind of comments like really keep me going and motivate me to continue with this blogging and stuff like that. Okay, Chris said Ben Shapiro is the huge racist, right-leaning Jewish dude. You can search his name on YouTube. He has videos trashing Black Lives Matter. He basically craps on black society. He had a video trying to legitimize slavery. Yeah, so I'm gonna look him up. Let me just check him out right now while I'm on here, and I'm gonna share my screen in a second. And what I may do is look at his videos, and if something is worthy of response, I may do responses on my other channel, my I Declare War channel. But let me try to look him up now. So he has a YouTube channel. Hold on one second. Let me see. Maybe if I put in channel. Hold on one second. I don't want to play any of his stuff because I don't want to get the copyright issues. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to show his channel, but yeah, I see it, and I'm going to look into it more. But I'm not that familiar. I'm not familiar with him at all, so I can't really speak on him yet. You know, I'll have to do my own research before I can talk about him. Oh, I see Elaine Lloyd said the chat isn't working for her on her phone. It's too late to get on my PC. And Bonafide 1970 said, I heard about Ethiopians who migrate to Israel being targeted for sterilization. And Chris says Ben Shapiro is as bad as Milo Yiannopoulos. Wow, that's real bad. So I'm gonna check out his channel. You know, check out his videos to see what he's talking about, and I may do a response to him to some of his videos. So before I close out, are there any other things that you all want to briefly discuss, or any other concerns? Elaine Lloyd said they sterilized blacks in the United States. Um, yeah, I know that there's a history of that. I don't know like about what's happening nowadays in that area, but okay. So Herb Saint wanted to know if there's some book recommendations that I have. Well, I mean, there are a couple of books that I would recommend. Like one would be, you know, and both of them from Ta-Nehisi Coates. Like one would be "We Were 8 Years in Power." That's a book that I listened to a couple of weeks ago. Um, it's a great book. It's like a collection of his essays. You know, some of his great pieces that he's done with the Atlantic. You know, his article on reparations, his article about the fear of a black president, his article about Donald Trump called the first white president. Donald Trump is the first white president. He has articles on Michelle Obama and Barack Obama. And he provides context to each one of those articles. He provides the backstory, you know, explaining what motivated him to do those articles. He talks about like how he was able to meet with the subjects of those articles and all that kind of stuff, and his interactions with those subjects, like with the president and Michelle Obama and all that kind of stuff. So I would recommend that book. That's a good book to read. Also, I would recommend his other book, which is a bestseller. That's Between the World and Me. A great book. It's an easy read, something that you can read in a couple of days. And I really want to read that book by Michael Wolff. I think it's Fire and Fury, or vice versa, or something like that. I need to read. I have to read that book. I mean, just the little excerpts that I have read in the press and heard about on the news are just so captivating that I really want to read that book. I'm going to try to probably check that out from the library or something, or you know, because I may just go ahead and buy it, man. Just buy the book and read it. But those are a couple of books. Oh yeah, and then Elaine Lloyd recommended The New Jim Crow. Yeah, that's a great book as well. That's a masterpiece. I would highly recommend that book. If you haven't read it, that's a book written by Michelle Alexander. It talks about the problem of mass incarceration. It talks about like how the criminal justice system targets African Americans for strict enforcement of drug laws, resulting in Black people receiving more harsh sentences and all that kind of stuff compared to white people. And the book also points out how Black and white people use and sell drugs at similar rates, but Black people are the ones that are sentenced, that are the ones that receive the harshest sentences. Um, yeah, so that's definitely a book that I would recommend as well. Yeah, so I have to read that book. I have to read Michael Wolff's book. I want to try to, like, after this is over with, I'm going to go online to see if it's available in my local library. And that's what I do. I usually get a lot of my books from the library instead of buying them, and because books take up space and all that kind of stuff, and it saves you expense if you just rent them, get them from the library and stuff. So that's usually what I do. But I had to buy a copy of that. I have copies of those two books. The Between the World and Me and Michelle Alexander's books. There are certain books that you're going to constantly go to for references, and those are the kind of books that you need to purchase. Have them available like at your fingertips so you can reference them. That's just how profound Michelle Alexander's book is. Another book that I read and I did a review on was The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. That's a book that I highly recommend as well for those people that want to learn about African history and stuff like that. Because often we're given this image that Africans contributed nothing to human civilization. And, this book outlines the great contributions of African people to civilization. And it talks about how African civilization was destroyed. How we went from being builders of civilization, went from being the cradle of civilization to being a conquered people, a people held in bondage and all that kind of stuff. So that's another book. I mean, I could go on and on with books that I recommend, but those are a few that I would highly recommend. And as Elaine pointed out on one of my past hangouts, I've done like reviews on a lot of these books that I've mentioned. So you all should check those out as well if you get a chance. But yeah, I'm going to close out. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to this Google Hangout. I appreciate your support. Um, yeah, and and the last thing I'll say is this: I'm going to have a hangout. I haven't set the time yet. I'm going to reach out to several YouTubers about following up on a series that I did where I talked to the sisters first, and then I talked to the brothers. And then I want to have a joint discussion with Black men and Black women about how do we rebuild Black relationships, the Black family, and the Black community. So look out for that. And I hope you all can tune in for that. I'll do a promo for it, announcing the names of the guests and all that kind of stuff. Tomorrow, I'm probably going to send out my inquiries to see if people are interested in, what times work for them and all that kind of stuff. But I will report back to you all on that. Okay, so, excuse me. So Bonafide 1970 had a question. You said, I have a personal question for you, my brother, being that you are a lawyer. Have you ever been in a situation where you utilized your legal expertise to deal with police harassment towards you? No, I haven't been in that situation. I have had situations where I've been stopped by the police and all that kind of stuff. And but a lot of my encounters with the police were primarily when, before I went to law school. When I was younger, I had more encounters with the police, but I've had encounters with them since. But the situation was such that I didn't have to use any legal expertise or anything like that. Um, the organization that I work with, they have like guidelines for how to interact with the police. I follow those guidelines. So I've used, those in terms of like how to communicate and interact with police and stuff like that. And a lot of this stuff is common sense. Like growing up, we're taught about how to interact with the police. And I actually have a video on my channel where I explain how people should work with well, I don't explain it. It's basically a video from Roland Martin's show where he's interviewing the attorney that represented Bill Cosby. I think her last name is Presley. Um, I'm bad with names, but the sister who represented Bill Cosby at one point, she's explaining exactly what people need to do when they encounter the police. And, that's what I would recommend. When I get a chance, I'll post a link in the description box so people can watch that video. But, there are basic things like you don't have to consent to a search, and, you need to know if you're being arrested and all that kind of stuff. There's some basic things like, making sure you have your ID and producing your ID and stuff like that, not getting into arguments with police officers, making sure that you document the officer's badge number and all that kind of stuff for your information. There's a whole host of things that can be done. And again, I'll post a link in the description box to the video that deals with how to interact with the police. And I may do like some subsequent videos on that, like thoroughly explaining how people need to deal with the police when they are stopped by the police and all that kind of stuff, so that people are armed with the information that they need. Now, yeah, so I see I'm getting a few questions, so I'll hang in a little bit longer. So Kevin Drummond asked, do I agree with keyboard musician? Do I agree with keyboard musician in regards to Tariq? I haven't watched his recent videos, so if you can tell me what he's saying about Tariq, in the comment section in this chat room, I would appreciate it, and then I could respond to that. So if you could just like summarize it in a sentence, Kevin Drummond, what he's actually saying, and then I could tell you what I think about what he's saying. Because I've listened to his videos like a while ago. He's one of these people that does all these endless videos criticizing people and stuff like that. He's done videos about Umar Johnson and Tariq Nasheed, but I don't know what he's saying now about that situation between those two. So if you can let me know in the chat room, Kevin Drummond, I would appreciate it, and I could tell you right now what I think about it. Shout out to Ghost Rider. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. Chris said that Umar Johnson's about to lose everything on Monday. I don't know if he's going to lose everything. And actually, the last time I heard, his hearing was going to be rescheduled. That may have changed. So I don't know if his hearing is going forward on Monday or not. That's something I'm very interested in. The last article that I read said that the hearing was being continued because he's getting counsel in the case, but I need to do a search to see if there's some new developments or whatever. So I'm looking forward to finding out what's going to happen, but I don't think he's going to lose everything. According to, what I've read, according to the order that was issued, the order to show cause, he faces fines, in that particular case. So I think it's like $10,000 for every violation, for every incident where he held himself out to have a license when in fact he did not have a license to practice psychology. Also, he has to pay for the cost of investigation, which is like $2,000 something. So yeah, so I don't know. Like I'm not sure if it's going to cost him everything or if everything is going to be over right after that hearing. The most that will happen is that he'll have to pay some fines and he will be publicly shamed for holding himself out as having a license when he, in fact, did not have a license. That's the primary issue for that hearing. But there's talk that there may be additional hearings. There's a question about what happened with this money, which is separate from the issues that are going to be raised at the hearing. This man had a GoFundMe account that was shut down after they raised questions about whether or not he's complying with GoFundMe's policies and stuff like that. So there's some serious questions. That he claims that he raised over 400 something $1,000, and now he's trying to say, well, GoFundMe was taking $150,000 from the fund because of the charging policies that they have with GoFundMe. But that doesn't add up because, from what I understand, GoFundMe only charges 5% from the donation, so 5% does not equal $150,000. So there are serious questions around that. And I'm sure that eventually the use of those funds is going to be an issue that's going to be investigated and discussed. So also, a YouTuber that I follow, Anti-Afro Swingali's, regularly loads videos, and I encourage people that are interested in following these situations to subscribe to her channel, because one of the things that she pointed out is how may just be the beginning. Perhaps there will be hearings dealing with his school board certification to practice as a psychologist as well, and other things. And this whole money issue may come up at a later time if he doesn't produce this school or becomes more transparent and provide people with bank statements, letting them know exactly how much money he still has and how he's using the money and all that kind of stuff. So a wide range of things could happen. But on Monday, if that hearing is in fact still on Monday, the most that'll happen is he'll have fines. And if, they find him liable or culpable or whatever, and also his name will be tarnished. But, given the way some people act, like, they don't care about that stuff. They're still going to support him regardless. I mean, this man could be found guilty of all kinds of crimes, and you'll still have people rationalizing and justifying and trying to explain it away and still embracing and following him, just like people follow any other kind of cult leader. Shout out to the real Aaron Collins. Thanks for joining the hangout. I'm towards the tail end of this hangout, but I was letting people know, if you're interested in, hopping on here for a second and talking about whatever you want to talk about, that's cool. This is an open mic session. So any questions y'all have, you can raise them in the chat room, or things you want me to talk about. Feel free. Okay, so this is what Kevin Drummond says that Tariq Nasheed is saying. He said he's basically saying that Tariq exposed themselves in his efforts to expose Umar Johnson. Now he's doing damage control by doing multiple videos on Umar. Yeah, he got exposed. I mean, he got exposed in a lot of ways. When Umar did that video, he exposed him in some ways, like when he was talking about like his use of a white production company. Tariq Nasheed tried to downplay that and stuff in his multiple videos and in his video with Boyce Watkins. But the fact of the matter is, you can't downplay that and play it off like that is not a significant point, because it is a very significant point. For someone to do documentaries about Black economic empowerment, for someone to do videos complaining about how the Black dollar doesn't circulate in the Black community more than once, for somebody to do all these videos and about all this stuff and documentaries about Black power and all this and that, to hire a white production company, it's a It's just hypocrisy, man. That's the only way you can explain it. And, in this whole country, you mean to tell me that there are no African American production companies that could provide a great rate, a competitive rate for their services? I find that hard to believe. Um, I really do, man. And I think it's a cop out. And I think that it's a shame that people are buying into it. Even if it was a white company, white owned company, at least have a company that has diversity in their staff, a company that will have Black employees as well working on this project. So I thought that was a good point, and I think that that's something that was exposed in that whole conflict between those two, man. I mean, it's like these people are exposing each other as being frauds. That's what's happening. And yeah, it's just a messed up situation all around. That both of these guys are being exposed and being called out as being frauds and stuff. And it's another reminder. I mean, Tariq Nasheed is a funny guy. Don't get me wrong. He's a good comedian. Like with his whole response, it was hilarious and all that kind of stuff. But it's gotten to the point right now where it's real juvenile and childish, where you got this guy constantly posting memes on his Instagram, constantly doing more and more videos about this situation, continuing to insult Umar Johnson, when at this point it's not even necessary. You know what I'm saying? And Tariq acknowledges that he's petty and stuff like that. And really, he's behaving like in a bitchy type, overly emotional type of way, man. And I just think it's unfitting. So, yeah, in a lot of ways, he has exposed himself by going after Umar Johnson the way he is, in fact, going after him. And then the fact that he thought that Umar Johnson was a fraud, but yet he continued to have him on Hidden Colors, on multiple Hidden Colors. I mean, that says a lot. I mean, it says a lot about a community that covers up corruption, covers up fraudulent behavior, and only wants to expose it when there's some kind of personal conflict. That is a disservice to the Black community, if he really felt that way. Now, he could just be saying this crap because he has beef now. But if he really felt that way at the time, but yet continued to have this man in his movies, continued to legitimize that man, it means that he was a part, assuming that these allegations of corruption and, misappropriations of funds are correct. That means that in part, this guy, Tariq Nasheed, in many ways aided and abetted that type of conduct. So yeah, I mean, it is in a sense, him exposing himself. So that's a valid point. And I see that Elaine Lloyd said when you only have a public image, being shamed is a big deal. Yeah, that's true. So Bonafide 1970 said, what would you think about a summit wherein each of our recently prominent figures could meet and civilly discuss and peacefully hash out their differences and brainstorm on practical solutions? I think that would be a great thing, but I think that these people that we're talking about now are, they are prominent figures. And in some ways, people could say, well, they are thought leaders in a certain forum, like in this forum of YouTube land and stuff like that. But I don't really think of them as leaders, man. When I think of leaders, I think of those people who are actually leading something, leading an organization, actually doing something besides going on speaking lectures and producing documentaries. When I think about leaders, I think about people like a Malcolm X or Martin Luther King or Stokely Carmichael, aka Kwame Ture, somebody actually leading an organization, a Huey P. Newton, or a Bobby Seale, and in today's time, even like the Black Lives Matter movement or some of these civil rights groups, somebody that's actually leading an organization with actual members. with set and measurable goals and measurable accomplishments. That's what I think of when I think of leadership. Somebody that does YouTube videos is not a real leader in my mind. Someone that only gives lectures around the country but doesn't lead any kind of effort to change laws, any kind of effort to protest against discrimination or police brutality. Those people are not leaders. They're individuals who are entertainers. And I think that too often we get it twisted. And we have these people that are more fixated on like cultural matters and conspiracy mumbo jumbo and ancient dusty pyramids and all that kind of stuff than they are concerned with our present day condition and trying to implement things that will bring about real change in this world. So yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with the summit, but I just think that it should be about real leaders, leaders participating in such a summit to come up with a plan to bring about real practical change. Oh, Kevin Drummond said, "Do you know what happened to Brother Polite?" Now, I don't know what's going on with him now. Like, I haven't followed. I'm not subscribed to his channel anymore. I don't know what's going on, but I know he had that situation where he claimed that the police was roughing him up and one of his so-called wives up, and he had some press conference and blah blah blah. But I haven't heard of anything after that. Like, as far as I know, nothing ever came from that. Nothing materialized. I know that there were some issues with his GoFundMe. Well, actually, it was his PayPal and stuff like that. I know he had some issues with that. I don't follow him like that, so I don't know what's going on. But if you would like to update me, if there's some new information, please let me know in the comment section. And Kevin Smith says Tariq took money from him and never sent his DVD. Okay, yeah, I'll send you the link. Let me go to your channel, Aaron. Let me. Yeah, I actually post. I'm gonna post it in the chat room again real quick. And I could just take a break and y'all could talk. You could talk. Tell me what you have to say. I know you all were on a panel with True Royal a while ago. I got a chance to listen to a little bit of it. And I see that the real Aaron Collins says, especially here in LA, Tariq could have found some Black producers. And Kevin Drummond said, why are Blacks so gullible when it comes to these frauds? Yeah, I did a video on that, like why Black people follow charlatans, hustlers, and con artists, explaining why I think that that's the case. And, I don't think that it's all Black people or even most Black people, but there are a significant number of Black people who follow these charlatans. And I see that Bonafide 1970 said, I agree. I wouldn't use the term leader, just a prominent figure. Huge difference. Yeah, there is a huge difference. And I see that real Aaron Collins said, many of us have a Messiah complex instead of waiting for a leader. Be your own leader, just lead. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a need for leadership. I do believe that you need to have leadership in order to have organization and mobilization. So I'm not one of these people that say, well, there's no need for a leader. And I do think that, I agree that people need to step up if they're not satisfied with the current leaders or the current organizations. They should lead and create their own organization. But there has to be some kind of leadership structure. I'm not one of these people that believe in a leaderless type of resistance. Shout out to LA. Peace to you. Oh, you said it's not letting you in the Hangout? Let me see. Let me make sure. All right, let me try to send it directly to your inbox. Maybe that's part of the reason. I don't know why I wouldn't let you go to the Hangout. So I'm about to send you the link to your into your inbox on YouTube. Okay, so the message has been sent, Aaron Collins, so you should receive it. And you should be able to just click it on and go to the Hangout. Just bear with me a second. And I posted it in the chat room, so if anybody wants to just join, you can. Okay, let me look at these comments real quick before I close out. Hopefully Aaron Collins will be able to join. So did you get the link, Aaron? These prominent, okay, so Bonafide 1970 said these prominent figures do not have, well, he said that they do have their own followers or people whom they affect for better or worse. Yeah, they do. I mean, in some ways they are like thought leaders and stuff like that. So they do influence people because people actually follow them and listen to them and look up to them and stuff like that. So in a lot of ways they are leaders, but where are they leading the people to? That's the question that I have. Are they what you would consider to be good leaders? What have they done? What have they achieved? That's how I judge leadership in terms of measurable accomplishments, measurable ways that they have improved the plight of Black people. It's just like when somebody's playing on the team, like whether that team is football or basketball or baseball, whatever, those players are judged based on what they produce, based on how well they score or how well they defend or whatever. I'm looking at these people and I'm not seeing many wins. I'm not seeing any measurable victories and stuff like that. So it's hard for me to look at them as real leaders or, look up to them. Like I may be entertained by what they have to say or, I may agree with certain points that they have, but I can't look at them as leaders. And Kevin Drummond asked, do I consider myself to be a leader? I don't really consider myself to be a leader right now. Because I'm not, like right now, I'm not leading any organization, like the same things that I said about those other people. I'm not leading any organization, but I do, like as a civil rights attorney, I'm actually involved in cases where I'm actually helping to fight against discrimination that Black people face. So in that way, I do have a measurable track record of accomplishment, like in terms of what we've been able to achieve in certain cases, fighting against certain discriminatory practices. So in that way, I have done my share of work and, contributed to the struggle of our people and stuff like that in measurable ways. So that sets me apart from these other people, but I don't look at myself as a leader because I'm not leading an organization. I'm not, leading people into some kind of effort. Now, there are examples of leadership, that I've exhibited here, like, for instance, encouraging people to participate in different petition drives and all that kind of stuff, encouraging people to contact their elected officials for various things and matters. So in that sense, I've led people to do certain things. I've encouraged certain things to take place, and I've advocated for certain policy changes and stuff like that. So in some sense, there are some leadership qualities that I'm exhibiting, but I'm not a leader. I strive to become a leader at some point. Whether that's through public service or other ways. All right, so let me look at some more of these comments. So Aaron, were you able to access the link? If you're in the comment section, you can let me know. All right, so and Bonafide 1970 said one example of leadership existence is the Wall Street movement. Occupy Wall Street. Yeah, that was an example, and I think that that's an example of the pitfalls of leadership, leaderless movements. That's an example of how ineffective leadership, movements without a leadership structure are. Like, that was a chaotic movement. It was a short-lived movement. And that movement did not really produce anything tangible. And that's what happens when you don't have a clear leadership structure where you have clear objectives that you plan to achieve and a clear means and an organized means to achieve those objectives. So that's one of the problems with that Occupy Wall Street movement. And frankly, it's one of the problems with the Black Lives Matter movement. The fact that they don't have a strict leadership structure. Now, LA said we need multiple leaders, but we need to be able to allocate our funds towards some Black progression. Yeah, we do need multiple leaders. All right, I'm gonna try to email this to you as well, because I sent it to your inbox. Did you receive it in your inbox, Aaron Collins? You can let me know in the chat room if you received it in your inbox on YouTube. Because you should be able to just click it and access the, unless my settings have changed or something. Oh, I see Psycho. See Psycho's on here. What's up, Psycho? How are you?
What's going on?
What's up? What's on your mind, man?
Oh, nothing. I just came in to chop it up with you about this whole leadership thing. I was agreeing with a lot of things you were saying, especially I think you just said one of the things wrong with Black Lives Matter movement is the fact that there wasn't no clear leadership. Like, and this is one of the things with the Black Lives Matter movement. One of the reasons why it always bothers me when I hear people throw around terms like, you're a part of Black Lives Matter, you're a part of Black. I always ask people, well, being a part of Black Lives Matter exactly? Like, what does that entail? Because it seems like all you have to do to be a part of Black Lives Matter is just come on here and defend Black people, and that you're automatically Black Lives Matter. So,
right.
Like, it's kind of weird because European could come around and say they attach to Black Lives Matter, and like, because there's no structure there. It's not a real organization. You got some people who attach their movements to the hashtag of Black Lives Matter, but organization, like, I always ask people that try to attach me to that, like, well, if this is an organization, then where's the leader? Where's the leader at?
Right.
Where's the headquarters? Where's the headquarters? Because
when aliens invade a land, they say, take me to your leader in these movies and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, who do I take him to? John Soros? Because that's what everybody, apparently he's the one who's running Black Lives Matter. I don't know. Like, again, there's no clear, there's nothing there. Like, it's really not, like you said, it's not a tangible organization that you can attach yourself to. So, so I understand what you're saying. If you're going to have an organization, every organization needs a leader.
Yeah,
needs a leader. So if you're going to attach yourself to one, you have to find somebody who's going to lead that organization down the proper path. My thing is, again, We can't get into the Jesus complex. We can't get stuck in trying to find the perfect leader. Because I don't like, as far as like the perfect person, I should say, like who doesn't have character flaws. He has character flaws. Everybody has character flaws. I want a leader who knows that they have character flaws, understand what their character flaws is, and try to have somebody try to surround themselves with people that's going to try to counter whatever counter flaw they have, try to even everything out, you know what I'm saying? So somebody who's self-aware. I don't need anybody who's stuck on themselves, who's just more about ego, agenda. I need somebody who's going to put the agenda first. And again, that's all I'm pretty much asking for. I want the message to be genuine, because I don't other agendas being mixed in and put into play. That's about it. Again, character flaws don't really give me no big deal. Not a real big deal. As long as it's nothing like a deal breaker. Like, I don't want to find out my leader, had ex-rape charges on him that he ended up doing, what I mean? That, like, crazy like that. But, if somebody got like a bad temper or something like that, or, it depends, as long as they surround themselves with people that can kind of, peel that back a little bit and everything, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, so I see that Aaron Collins has joined us. I want to ask both of you, shout out to you, man. Thanks for joining the Hangout.
I'm glad to be a part of it, MP. Glad to finally get to meet you. What up, Psycho?
Peace. What's going on, Aaron?
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask both of y'all, like, what do y'all think about this Umar Johnson situation, this Boyce Watkins conflict, and his conflict with Boyce Watkins and Tariq Nasheed? What do y'all think about that? I want to hear from y'all. I know that y'all did a couple of videos on it, but I want to hear from y'all now. Like, what do you think about it? Like, what's your assessment of Umar Johnson and the situation? What's your assessment of the response of Boyce Watkins and Tariq Nasheed?
My thing is this, and pardon my language, but to me, it's basically like, it's a dick measuring contest to me, because it's like, I mean, okay, both of these guys, really all three of them, to me, they all have some really great, profound platforms. And it's a shame that they're all behaving this way. I mean, what Tariq is doing, it's actually childish. I mean, making all these videos about him, talking about he'll slap his fat around, whatever. I mean, come on now. I mean, that sounds like something suspect. I think what they're doing is really, I mean, these are supposed to be the folks that people look up to as being the conscience of the Black community. Well, I mean, what they're going to be thinking is, well, man, I could have gone out in the street and see this. I mean, I could be watching Bloods and Crips going at each other. If these are the people we supposed to be looking at as conscious people in the Black community, shoot, we better all being in the hood. It's really, and it's not to mention, it's also showing white supremacy, how undivided and unified we are too, because they've been able to neutralize us to begin with. Especially Black men, they've really done a number on us, and this is just another further weapon for them to use against us.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Aaron just said. Like, again, it definitely got to a point where it's all about egos. Because at one point, I found myself asking myself, like, what is they really arguing about again? Like, I'm a little bit confused what this argument was all about. Like, okay, let me put, like, I like Umar's message as far as, like, pertaining to, like, his strong stance on Black love and, Black power. And I respect the fact that he's trying to make a school for boys and everything. Like, I respect the idea, right? Now, I want to just put that out there. I also like Tariq as far as, like, I love to hear debate white supremacists and coons. I actually get enjoyment out of that. I love to see him roast Tammy and everything. I always, so I don't have any real strong issues towards either one of them. So it was a little disappointing for me to see them to act like this. But now, all that being said, I got to be real and just place the blame where I think it really lies, and I think the blame lies more on Umar than anything. And the reason why I say that is because I can't really get mad at Tariq for clapping back. Because Umar did start this fight. You know, he did poke that bear. He came out, he poked the bear, and the bear growled at him. So, you know, it's really like, so, you know, that's kind of what happens. And he's going through something. Like, he was going through something the entire week and everything else. And that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. And he already had prior issues with Tyreek. So this is all like prior stuff that's just boiled over now because, you know, everything was the perfect storm brewing and it kind of just blew up. So like that's kind of what that was. But Umar got too much other stuff going on to be worried about what a person just gave their opinion about something. I didn't feel like Tariq threw him under the bus either.
Yeah,
I really didn't feel that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like his first video was real measured. Like he wasn't going off on Umar or anything like that. He was basically saying, well, you know, first of all, he said that he thinks that the idea of people filing complaints about his license and all that kind of stuff, he thought that that was wrong. And he was talking about like how people don't go after white supremacists like that.
Right.
And
Right.
also reserved judgment on the whole money issue. He said, well, I don't know about the money and stuff like that, but I think that people have every right to raise that issue. But it was funny when he said, well, if you lost money, you might as well chalk it up to the game. And I could understand why Umar would be disappointed with that comment and with him saying, well, he was going to be neutral.
That was top. That was him also covering his own butt. That was Tariq covered his own butt, like when he said that, because you know, he also said,
it was a diplomatic way to address it because he was saying, I'm not for you, I'm not against you. So it wasn't a diss. It was just like he was being neutral on the whole thing. And I think that's reasonable. I wouldn't have went off in that situation, but Umar Johnson, Umar's
arrogance is basically being his downfall. I mean, he's calling himself the Prince of Pan-Africanism and or whatever he said. I'm like, okay, dude, are you like making an album or I mean, are you trying to fight for the community? I mean, I love Umar's talking points and I love Tariq's talking points. And you all are both right. Tariq is somewhat of a comedian. I saw him like in a picture. He was presenting a Coon Train Award to Jesse Lee Peterson, and that was pretty funny actually. But when it comes to dealing with issues like this, I mean, I think he could tone it down a little. And it is a shame, like Syke said, it's a shame that these two brothers is going at it. And I never knew they had issues to begin with. I mean, from that picture, I saw them shaking hands. I thought they was cool. And as far as Dr. Boyce is concerned, Boyce Watkins, he's had issues with Umar before in the past. So it might be some old unrekindled, I don't know, animosity going on with that. And so.
Right. I didn't know that it was any undertone feelings they had towards each other with Umar, and I wasn't surprised. I just didn't know, but I wasn't surprised though because that's how a lot of these like egos is out of whack within games in social media. Like they all got inflated egos.
Yeah.
So and they all take little small shots behind the scenes of people and everything else. That it's kind of just kind of what it is. So again, I wasn't surprised. I just didn't know. I also will say this: the whole school thing and the psychologist thing and everything else. As far as that goes, I have heard conflicting stories as far as like whether or not Umar has actually claimed to be a psychologist or not. Like I've actually heard him make these claims and then he turns around and say he didn't make the claims. I don't like it's not looking good for Umar. It's just not like he kind of painted himself against the wall. And the school thing, I definitely agree that agreed to Tariq that he was overselling it because I remember. And I'm not saying this because he's saying it. I'm saying I always thought this because I always thought it was strange that one, this is going to be one school, right? Like, obviously, this is going to be one school. He's not going to have enough money to make a whole bunch of schools. So the first question becomes, where is this school going to be at? That's the first question. Where is the school going to be at, right? Now, once you establish where the school is going to be at, which he didn't have a location, so that's once you establish that, then you have to establish, well, how big is the school going to be? Because obviously, because I heard him saying it was going to be dorms and all this other, which is going to probably have to be, because I mean, doing the type of stuff he was talking about doing is going to have to be a private school with dormitories and everything, with the housing and food and all that. So again, my main issue when he was selling all this, and like I said, in the perfect world, it sounds good. We all get to send our kids to this to Umar school, and he learn how to be men and all this, everything else. It all sounds good, but at the end of the day, who are you targeting? Because what is this doing for the black boys in the poor communities? And that's where most of us are at as little kids. Is in the hood. Most of us are not living middle class to upper class. But that's who you're targeting. You're targeting the middle to upper class, because these are the only people that can afford, that's going to be able to afford any kind of tuition to send their kids to this big, huge school that you're going to have all this military training and all this extra stuff that you're selling and everything. Like, this all costs money. And the tuition is going to have to be steep. So ain't no poor people from any of these communities going to be able to send their kids anywhere. So you're pretty much targeting the middle to upper class. Now, who in the middle to upper class is going to feel the need to want to send their kids to Umar school? Because most people in the middle to upper class don't even like Umar. They don't even rock with Umar. You understand? Like you got, those are the Roland Martins of the world we talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's pretty much what
you talking about, them
targeted. Exactly. So at the end of the day,
type of people. That's them Boule blacks right there. Yeah, they ain't gonna like Umar. They tried to ambush old boy up there on the Roland Martin show, but he held his own pretty well though. I mean,
right.
Because definitely the coons are not gonna like him. And it seems like most of the coons are just in the upper elite. Not saying that people like us couldn't be in the upper echelon, but if you notice that a lot of coons have a real kind of whitewashed type of, when the upper elites have this almost European-esque kind of vibe to them. It seemed like it's like people like us, they just look down on you. I'm like, wait a minute, I got the same skin you got,
Right. It's crazy. So like again, so I was a little confused who his target audience was he trying to like aim for. So I was a little bit lost on that, because you would think most people that's going to send their kids to that school are going to be single mothers, right? Because most people that got fathers in the house don't need Umar school, because the whole purpose for the school was to target the single mothers who don't have fathers in their life, so they can have a place to send their boys so they can learn how to be a man, right? Wasn't that like supposed to be like kind of like the main purpose? So you're mainly targeting single mothers, but again, they gotta be single mothers that's middle to upper class that could afford this. So I don't know. Just it seemed like a bit of a stretch, Like I was like, he's gonna have to downscale or something. He's gonna have to do something just to try to make that work, because the way he's talking about doing it with all that, and I heard rumors that he was talking about going to Africa with the school and everything else. Like, that's even more money.
He basically trying to do an Oprah. He trying to be like a male Oprah, but he don't got Oprah money. That's the thing.
Thank you. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, unless you're talking about opening up a whole fleet of these schools or whatever, even then, that's going to be that's dumping a lot of money into something that you're not sure is going to be a working platform. Did we lose New Possibilities?
I wonder. My thing is this though. According to how this trial go Monday, will he even have enough money to even go to Africa? Because
right.
Because after Monday, I guess, I wonder, will it be televised or, well, I'm sure we'll find out about it somehow. Yeah, I think New Possibilities left his own stream.
Is it saying? Yeah, that's weird. It says Sandy's still there. Maybe he's trying to get back in. I don't know. He might
Yeah,
have
he
lost
might.
connection.
Yeah, he probably. Yeah, sometimes that happen. Yep. But
But
yeah,
yeah,
like I was saying before,
I
I don't
see.
got.
Oh, go ahead.
I said I don't. I mean, I still got love for Umar. I still got love for Tariq. I got love for Dr. Boyce too. I mean, people then call Dr. Boyce fraud and all that. I'm like, well, whatever the case may be, that still doesn't invalidate what he has to say. What he says is still true. I mean, he still has some good talking points. I mean, whether I ever go to his school, probably might not, but I mean, he still has something to say. Everyone's got something to say. I mean, as far as Dr. Umar is concerned, and this is perfect. I was listening to Cynthia G's live stream last night. She broke it down real good about Dr. Umar, saying that how he has the doctorate. Anything a subject that you take, you get a PhD in, you are considered a doctor. The thing is,